The Last Battle. In the last days of Narnia, when the great kingdom had fallen into decay, a clever ape named Shift lived near the great western woods. His simple donkey friend Puzzle resided with him, often manipulated into Shift's schemes. On a stormy night, as rain lashed against the trees and thunder rumbled ominously, Shift's greedy eyes gleamed with a new plot. "Puzzle, my dear friend," he said, his voice honey-sweet, but eyes cold, "I've had the most wonderful idea. You see that lion's skin in the pool? Fetch it for me, won't you?" Puzzle, ever obedient, plunged into the icy water, struggling against the current to retrieve the sodden skin. As he dragged it ashore, shivering and sputtering, Shift's grin widened. "Perfect," he muttered, "simply perfect." In the days that followed, Shift worked tirelessly, stitching and adjusting the lion's skin to fit Puzzle. His plan was as audacious as it was blasphemous to pass off Puzzle as Aslan, the great lion himself, and rule Narnia through deception. Miles away, in the lush gardens of Care Paravel, King Tirion enjoyed the peace of his reign, unaware of the darkness brewing in the western woods. The young king, last in a long line of Narnian monarchs, spent his days in the company of his dear friend, Jewel the Unicorn. Their idyllic existence was shattered one morning by the arrival of a centaur, his flanks heaving and eyes wide with distress. "Your Majesty," the centaur gasped, "terrible news from the western woods. They say Aslan has returned, but his commands are cruel and unlike him. The talking trees are being felled, Dryads and Naiads slaughtered, and all in Aslan's name." Tyrion's world tilted on its axis. Aslan cruel? It was unthinkable. Yet the reports continued to pour in, each more disturbing than the last. Animals forced into labor, dissenters disappearing in the night, and always the refrain, "Aslan has ordered it." Unable to reconcile these actions with the Aslan he knew, Tyrion set out to investigate, Jewel by his side. As they journeyed towards the western woods, the very air seemed to thicken with dread. The usual chatter of birds was absent, replaced by an eerie silence broken only by the distant sound of axes. At the edge of the woods, they encountered a group of dejected talking animals, heads bowed in submission as they hauled logs. Tyrion's heart clenched at the sight. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, his voice ringing with authority. A badger looked up, eyes dull with resignation. "It is Aslan's will, Your Majesty. He has returned and commands us to work for the Calormens." Tyrion's mind reeled. The Calormens? Narnia's ancient enemies? This couldn't be Aslan's will. As night fell, he and Jewel crept closer to the heart of the woods, where they said Aslan was holding court. In a moonlit clearing, they saw a sight that turned their blood to ice. There, upon a crude platform, stood what appeared to be Aslan, but something was terribly wrong. The movements were jerky, the roar unconvincing. And there, pulling strings and giving orders, was Shift the ape. Fury overwhelmed Tyrion. Without thinking, he burst into the clearing, sword drawn. "Impostor!" he roared. "How dare you blaspheme against Aslan?" But he had underestimated the power of Shift's deception. The animals, so long under the ape's influence, turned on their king. In a matter of moments, Tyrion found himself bound and gagged, a prisoner in his own kingdom. As he was dragged away, Tirian's heart cried out in desperation. "Aslan," he prayed silently, "if you ever loved us, send help to Narnia." Worlds away, in a quiet English garden, Jill Pole and Eustace Scrubb were enjoying a mundane afternoon when they felt a familiar tug. The world around them blurred, colors swirling into a vortex, and suddenly they were standing in a dense forest, the scent of Narnian air filling their lungs. Their joy at returning to Narnia was short-lived, however, as they quickly discovered the dire situation. They found Tirian, freed him, and together they formulated a plan to expose the false Aslan and reclaim Narnia. But the task proved more daunting than they could have imagined. Shift had allied himself with the Calormenes, led by the cunning Rishta Tarkan. Worse, they were spreading a new blasphemy, that Aslan and the Calormene god Tash were one and the same. As Tirian and his small band of loyalists fought to reveal the truth, the very fabric of Narnia seemed to be unraveling. Stars fell from the sky, the great talking beasts began to lose their power of speech, and a creeping darkness spread across the land. The final battle for Narnia was fought before the stable, where the false Aslan resided. It was a chaotic and heartbreaking affair, with Narnians fighting Narnians, unsure of who to believe. Tirian and his friends fought valiantly, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. Just when all seemed lost, a terrible screech rent the air. Tash, the vulture-headed god of the Calormenes, appeared in a swirl of sulphurous smoke. The creature was terrifying to behold, with curved talons and eyes that burned with malevolent fire. Rishta Tarkan, who had so glibly invoked Tash's name, found himself seized in those cruel claws, disappearing with a scream into the stable. In the confusion that followed, Tirian found himself backed against the stable door. With a final defiant cry of "Come in if you dare," he allowed himself to be pushed inside, but instead of the cramped, dark interior of a stable, Tirian found himself in a sun-drenched meadow that stretched as far as the eye could see, and there, radiating light and love, stood Aslan, the real Aslan. "Welcome, last king of Narnia," the great lion said, his voice filled with both sorrow and love. "You have fought the good fight. It is finished." As Tirian watched in awe, he saw his friends appear one by one. Jill, Eustace, and to his amazement, the kings and queens of Narnia's golden age, Peter, Edmund, Lucy. Only Susan was absent, having forgotten Narnia in her pursuit of worldly pleasures. Together, they witnessed the end of Narnia. Aslan called Father Time, who reached up and squeezed the sun like an orange. Darkness fell, and in that darkness, every living thing in Narnia was called to judgment before Aslan. Those who looked upon him with love in their hearts found themselves drawn through a door into Aslan's country. Those who looked with hate or fear disappeared into his shadow. As the last star went out and the last living creature was judged, Aslan led them further up and further into his country. They ran without tiring, each step bringing new wonders and joys. They discovered that this new land was Narnia too, but the real Narnia, of which the one they had known was just a shadow. Here, every good thing that had ever existed was preserved and magnified. Every beloved friend they had lost was found again, and as they climbed a great mountain, they discovered that Aslan's country connected all worlds. They could see England, and beyond it countless other realms. This is the end of all stories, Aslan told them, his eyes shining with infinite love. But for them, it is only the beginning of the real story. All their life in this world, and all their adventures in Narnia have only been the cover and the title page. Now at last they were beginning chapter 1 of the great story, which no one on earth has read, which goes on forever, in which every chapter is better than the one before. And so, as Narnia faded into memory and legend, a new adventure began, one that would last for all eternity, filled with joy, love, and the never-ending discovery of Aslan's boundless country. The tale of Narnia's last days serves as a poignant reminder of the power of faith, the danger of deception, and the eternal nature of truth and goodness. It challenges us to consider what we truly believe in, and what we're willing to fight for. In the end, it reassures us that no matter how dark things may seem, there is always hope of further up and further in for those who keep faith and love in their hearts. As the story of Narnia comes to a close, we're left with a bittersweet mix of sorrow for what's lost and joy for what's gained. The destruction of Narnia is heart-wrenching, but the revelation of Aslan's country fills us with wonder and hope. It's a powerful metaphor for the Christian concept of the end times and the promise of eternal life. But it resonates even for those who don't share Lewis's faith. It speaks to the universal human hope that there's something more beyond this life, that our stories don't truly end with death. The last battle, the character arcs reach their culmination in this final chapter. Tirion, the last king, embodies the nobility and sacrifice of all Narnian rulers before him. Jill and Eustace, once frightened children, now stand as brave defenders of Narnia. Puzzle, the donkey, learns the danger of blind obedience and the importance of thinking for oneself. Even Shift, in his terrible end, serves as a cautionary tale about the corrupting influence of power and greed. The appearance of characters from previous books, Peter, Edmund, Lucy, Polly, and Diggory, brings the series full circle. Their presence reminds us of all the adventures that have come before, all the lessons learned and battles fought. It's a reunion that fills the heart with joy, even as we mourn for Susan, who has lost her connection to Narnia. Lewis's descriptions of Aslan's country are some of the most beautiful and moving passages in the entire series. The sense of joy, of homecoming, of everything sad coming untrue is palpable. It's a vision of heaven that appeals not just to our hope for an afterlife, but to our deepest longings for belonging, for purpose, for a world where everything is as it should be.